So, Hollywood is doing pretty bad. Box office profits are sinking, consolidation is rampant, and on the consumer side of things, moreover, the studios are unwilling to invest big money in anything that isn't part of an existing franchise, and even in those cases, they all too often go way overboard. But even when Hollywood attempts something new, it more often than not flops. With all these red flags standing tall and proud in Tinseltown, it comes as no surprise that people have been all doom and gloom about the future of Hollywood. I'm here to give my 2 cents and say that, yes, Hollywood is doomed. But there's a lot more to say than just that. Great institutions don't just collapse in an instant. The Hollywood filmmaking establishment has been around for over 100 years, and it's undergone many trials and tribulations in that time. But nothing lasts forever, and Hollywood is, I believe, suffering from a combination of outside pressures that will ultimately spell its doom. And in order to help illustrate that prediction, I'm first going to craft an analogy. So, Megalodon. For anyone who somehow doesn't know this already, it was a giant shark that lived in the prehistoric past and is typically envisioned as a bigger great white. Specifically, it lived from about 20 million to 3.5 million years ago and was the unquestioned absolute ruler of the world's oceans. But a creature that big could only evolve with the existence of big prey items. Megalodon grew to its enormous size because whale lineages underwent population booms during the geologic eras it lived, so it had an adequate source of food. But this source didn't last forever. Due to various environmental and ecological factors, all the whale species Megalodon relied on for food started dying out, leaving the Meg to face starvation without an alternate food source. But there was one temporary food source readily available. Now let's look at the history of Hollywood up to the present to properly contextualize its current woes. The Hollywood filmmaking establishment took shape in the early 1900s, formed when independent film companies fled en masse from the eastern United States to California. Long story short, Thomas Edison had patents over the technology used to make films, and trying to enforce these patents out west would be a lot harder. Eventually, his monopoly was broken up by the courts, and the film industry became a true free market. But as time went on and the American film industry grew and evolved, it largely remained consolidated within the city of Los Angeles. Having all the necessary equipment, cast, and crew for film production centralized in one place was beneficial from an economic and logistics standpoint, and helped foster its own mini ecosystem within the greater world of entertainment. The industry survived through a lot of bullshit, and even came out of the post-World War II era stronger than before. But its first real challenge came in the 1960s, when the old production model became unsustainable. The studio's emphasis on expensive star talent and high production values started coming at the expense of real artistry. As the 60s progressed, the ecosystem that Hollywood had spent the last few decades cultivating began to starve with their inability to understand the ever-shifting sensibilities of audiences. A change was in order, and that change came in the form of a new wave of creative minds birthed from the counterculture movement from the same era. Seeing the gargantuan success of smaller, independent films like Night of the Living Dead, this convinced the studios it was worth placing their trust in the artistic visions of directors over lavish production costs. What followed is what I like to call the golden age of pop culture. From the 70s up until the new millennium, a new spirit of creativity was infused into not just the film industry, but American entertainment in general. All the great, recognizable franchises that are beloved today spawned from this time period. And starting from the late 70s, the best of both worlds was achieved. as many films spearheaded by visionary directors had significant financial backing from big studios. But for every massive success, there was a failure. Following the new millennium, Hollywood started following a new strategy, falling into the minimal risk mindset that plagues it even today. Sequels and remakes became more prevalent, but another category that had more positive resonance with consumers were adaptations of properties in other media, with novels and comic books being the most prevalent. And this strategy has certainly paid off handsomely for Hollywood. That brings us to the present. And the present is pretty bleak. Nostalgia pandering has become the de facto norm in recent years as a result of Hollywood's near total reliance on existing IP to make money. But this state of affairs only exists because what few original ideas Hollywood pours lots of money into tend to fail. The root cause of this can only be that the current crop of talent in Hollywood is out of touch with the sensibilities of younger generations. The declining economy certainly plays a part in people withholding their money, but Hollywood being out of touch is the greater cause. And this reality has drawn a lot of comparisons between nowadays and the Hollywood of the 60s. I've seen a lot of people express belief that history will repeat itself and Hollywood will recover in the same way, but there's some key differences between then and now. All the necessary resources and infrastructures to make a movie back in the 60s required more capital than most people could generate. Even regular video cameras weren't readily affordable back then, let alone high-end ones used in movie making. If you wanted to make a movie back then, you had no choice but to integrate yourself into the Hollywood machine. But we live in a different world now, a world that plays host to the great, wondrous country of Internet Land. The existence of the internet has largely democratized entertainment. Standards of video production are lower, but the rise and success of online personalities has proven that production value matters little. And this influx of creativity into the internet entertainment landscape is leaving Hollywood with less sustenance. After all, why try to force your way into the Hollywood system when you can just make your stuff yourself and put it online without needing to answer to studio executives? And with the existence of platforms like Patreon and Kickstarter, consumers can financially support these independent creators instead of Hollywood. And in addition to environmental shifts, Hollywood is facing ecological pressure from other competitors in the form of anime and video games, both of which have been on the rise for the past couple of decades. All this adds up to the great Hollywood megalodon being starved and resorting to cannibalism to stave off its extinction for a little while longer. But while Hollywood is staring into the jaws of death, they aren't quite ready to clamp down. I'm gonna close this video out by giving my predictions for Hollywood's future and inevitable doom. With the decline of comic book movies since the start of the 2020s, it's not much of a hot take to say that game movies will fill the void. This fresh source of material to adapt will give Hollywood a temporary lifeline. Here's my prediction of the timeline. The rest of the 2020s will see the continued proliferation of game movies, with comic book movies being fully replaced in relevance by them. The 2030s will be the golden age of video game movies, with lots of our favorite game franchises successfully making the jump to the big screen. And then, their own decline will come in the beginning of the 2040s. By this time, independent online entertainment will have grown and developed to the point of becoming the de facto entertainment landscape, and a whole new era will dawn upon us. That is, of course, assuming the world doesn't end before that time. Thank you for watching. Any and all feedback is appreciated, and if you enjoy reading, feel free to check out my self-published book library on Amazon. All books are available in physical and digital editions, and free to read on Kindle Unlimited. Link is in the description. Alright, best wishes.